difference maybe there's that it should be online. So right now there is no link given on the LMS portal. Am I right? Dear learners, am I right? Is there any link to submit the synopsis or project proposal? Can you see that link on LMS portal?
Yes, to submit the project.
No, there's no link.
It's there.
It is there.
No, I haven't seen it.
No link.
Actually, yesterday I was going through that LMS, so I couldn't see that. So in meanwhile, ma'am, we can go do it through emails only.
Yeah, like I approve the proposal, and where do they send the project report?
Actually, that we need to sort it out for in next meeting. I'll sort it with.
Because the approval of the approval is needed by the concerned. Like,
Yes, I know, ma'am. We need to send it when if you guide the project, you'll sign and the student will sign and it will go to the school or the faculties, isn't it?
yeah, the procedure is.
So,
Yeah,
ma'am, procedure will be actually proceed. There is no change in the procedures. I mean,
Then there is no.
yes,
Then,
but-
no.
Yes, ma'am.
No. The thing is, you can send it to the faculty.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. I'll do that.
Whatever you can talk to COE and do.
Yes.
accordingly.
Actually, ma'am, some issues are there. So, we are continuously sending them emails and all, and they are trying to resolve them. But this query is not yet resolved. So, yes. So, I'll talk to Dr. Madhu Prahar, ma'am, for this.
Yeah, what actually is this thing
Yes,
procedure
ma'am.
for
Yes,
this, and even the names have to be approved. Who are the this thing, and whether they follow the procedure, because already there are other counselors also, no, so they can also guide. It depends how many of them are taking the project.
Actually, ma'am, more than 50% are taking the project. Rest are taking MET 004.
Okay.
So it's around 30, maximum 30 students.
Okay. But some approval, because if the project approving authority, like generally the faculty there only approves. Like we used to approve the proposal also.
Yes,
So,
ma'am. I'll send it to the faculty, or I'll get it. I'll get in touch with the director COE and let you know.
Yeah.
But you can guide it. This is for sure.
Yeah. I'll be this
You can
thing.
guide it through emails and all.
Yeah. They can send it through email, and the same, whenever it is approved, they have to attach that approval thing with the
Yes.
project, and then either upload or say whatever the thing is.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. So you can continue, and Vayul is again a co-host for helping you, ma'am. Here.
Okay. So we begin today. Today we'll cover units 9, 10, 11 and 12. So these actually come under, like we are talking about rehabilitation. So in this we talk about, the first unit is the nature of damage to houses and infrastructure due to disasters. Now, when we talk of damage assessment and things like that, we have to assess actually what type of damage has occurred to the houses and other infrastructure, because we know that disasters play havoc with the lives of the people. Anything, earthquakes, floods, cyclones, landslides, they cause huge damage to houses and infrastructure. So, as you know, they do not have any option but to, for the time being, to move to transit accommodation or some makeshift arrangement and things like that. But ultimately, since we talk about reconstruction and rehabilitation, we need to discuss about what type of housing, like what is the kind of damage to houses and all. It's a very broad term, but then there are various types of damages and the extent of the damage that takes place to the houses and infrastructure. So all these we will be discussing. Now, first we talk about earthquakes. Okay. So earthquakes, what is an earthquake? Tell me. You have come to the end of the program. What is the earthquake? In simple terms, what is the earthquake? What happens in earthquake?
Earthquake.
Ah,
Earthquake is just like shaking the earth.
because it involves rapid shaking of the earth, which is caused by the energy, okay, which is stored in the rocks. Yes, Monoja, Anthony.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing.
So the energy that is stored in the rocks, and suddenly it gets released, it causes the earthquake. Okay, so when the earthquake is caused, the amount of the waves that is called seismic waves. So these seismic waves, they create shocks, and then it causes the damage to not only to people, loss of lives and all, but also to the infrastructure. So we call it structural damage. The structures get damaged. So what are the factors? Like, how is it that we say that the structures are damaged? What are the factors that affect the structural damage? First is, what is the intensity of the earth shaking? Okay. How is the earthquake intensity measured? It is measured by a scale, isn't it?
Richter scale.
It is measured. So the intensity of the earth shaking, it depends how much it has caused the structural damage. And also the strength of the soil, the foundation soil, especially when we are talking of buildings and infrastructure, the strength of the foundation soils, and then how much they have caused the damage. Generally, there is a scale, and generally the damage is determined this way. First, we call it grade 1. That is a slight damage, not much, but a slight damage where there are thin cracks in the plaster of the building. The second is called moderate damage. Okay. These lead to small cracks, then falling of plaster. You know, the buildings, the plaster is there, so it falls off. Then damage to the iron structural parts in the building. This is called grade 2, that is moderate. First is grade 1, slight damage. Second is grade 2, moderate damage. And the third is heavy damage. Heavy damage occurs when there are large and deep cracks in the wall and the corners, and even the tiles and all fall. And also the walls, also there is a slight tilting of the walls. They move. We call it grade 3, which is heavy damage. Then grade 4 is called destruction. Destruction is where there are gaps in the walls. The intensity of the earthquake is so much that there are gaps which occur in the wall, and then at times the bricks also fall. All these comes under grade 4. Then grade 5 is total collapse, where the entire building, house, or any construction that is taking place comes crashing down. So there are 5 grades. Grade 1, slight damage. Grade 2, moderate damage. Grade 3, heavy damage. Grade 4 is destruction. And grade 5 is total collapse. So when we talk of earthquakes, first we talk about earthquakes. Earthquakes, we know, are extremely devastating, and they can lead to any total or partial collapse of the buildings. Then how is it the impact is determined by the seismic energy of the earthquake. Like, what is the magnitude on Richter scale? How much? Okay, how much is the Richter scale? Like, what is the intensity of the earthquake? Then the distance from the epicenter, like a place is how far is that place. Generally what happens is earthquake occurs at some place, and then the various places are affected in a different way. So how far is your place or any place from the epicenter of the earthquake? Then also thirdly, the damage depends on the construction type of the building. So these are the factors that affect the damage. Generally, the buildings are of two types: engineered structures and non-engineered. Have you heard about it before in your other courses? Engineered and non-engineered. Frequently reference has been made to it earlier also. Can anybody say what is an engineered structure and what is a non-engineered structure? Engineered and non-engineered.
Can I try?
Yeah.
I think
Ma,
engineered buildings are those
okay.
which are designed by
Yeah.
qualified engineers or architects, because
Yeah.
when
Good.
they are designing, they consider some things. They consider the nature of the land.
Yeah.
But
Good.
non-engineered structures, I think, they are those that are constructed by just local people, because so and so in our area knows how to construct, so they contract them to construct.
Yeah. Good. Very good. Then somebody else was also saying, Ibrahim.
But the same thing, engineer structure are those structure that are organized by civil engineering, civil architecture, environmental. They combine together and construct. While non-structural engineer are just constructed by ordinary people.
Yeah. True. Then somebody else, Tombe Silver. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, I just wanted to add something. This definition reminds me of what we learned previously based on the seismic type of structures that are that are prone to disaster related issue. Engineered structures that are always done by, as my colleague defined, by people that have experience in engineering,
Yeah.
taking in mind a location of a particular area. If it
Yeah.
is prone to disaster, they take the seismic approach.
Yeah. True.
While the non-engineer structures, they construct and they don't care. They say it is God willingly, because
Yeah.
they don't have the
Expertise.
mindset of
Huh.
yeah.
And they don't have the expertise. See, they have not studied much, and they don't have the expertise. True. That is there. Good. And Adamu?
Yes, ma. In addition to what they have said, yeah, those non-engineered structures are the ones built with just light materials, like wood, like these what are they calling them? Dry grasses and things like that. While those engineered are the one that used cement, concrete, road, and other things like that. And
Yeah.
some are built to be flood and this thing earthquake resistance. Those are the engineered one.
Yeah. Like non-engineered structures can be even, earth or mud houses. No, they also come under non-engineered. Like, as you said, it is constructed by people with just some local knowledge. Like, they are semi-skilled in a way. Okay, they are semi-skilled. See, Temporary structures, that's fine if it is built like this to tide over the problem that has come up. But in the long run, in this course, we are talking of reconstruction and rehabilitation. So in this, we need to focus more on non-engineered structures, where it has to be built as per the specifications and as per the topography of the area where it is built. And at times it happens that even some buildings are made of wooden buildings. Okay, they could be good, but then they are prone to catching fire. So all these things need to be kept in view when the reconstruction of the buildings are taken place. Like at times, when the buildings are or the houses are built, like for example, simple thing is generally buildings, they tend to have long rooms. Okay, so these long rooms, many a times they don't get support from the cross walls. So such things should be avoided. And also the location and size of the windows also, that makes a difference. And then like rubble, masonry, stone walls, something made of stone, that is also not okay, as its strength reduces, especially when there are rains. And also in case of earthquake, the extent of damage is going to be more, especially when it is made of stones. So the quality of construction and type of construction matters a lot when the reconstruction activities are taken place. And the other type of damages which occur is to the infrastructure, like roads, railways. There is collapse of flyovers and water supply. The water supply gets cut. So that is another problem. Then drainage and sewerage, especially in times of cyclones and floods. Then telecommunication network, that also gets disturbed. Then electricity network, it gets disturbed. So these are the types of damages that happens in case of earthquake. So the other thing is, now we come to cyclones. So the dangers in case of cyclones come from strong winds, because cyclones are generally accompanied by strong winds, torrential rains, like the rains are very, very heavy, and storm surges. So all these affect the infrastructure. And in case of cyclone affected area, what is the extent of damage? Here also there is a type of gradation, like in case of earthquake. Very high damage risk. Here the nature of damage is, it is expected that the houses and infrastructure will collapse. Then high damage risk, it could be that the rooftops will fly and walls may fall of the houses. There are destruction of lamps, the poles, lightning poles, telephone poles. This is high damage risk. The other is moderate damage risk. Moderate is where there is a light damage to the poles, maybe a slight tilting of the poles and all. Then low damage risk is, which is the minimum, like where the signboards and all fly away, and then the telephone poles, as I said, slightly bend and all. Then very low damage risk. Very low is very little. There is negligible damage to the houses and infrastructure. So in case of cyclones, as in case of earthquakes, we have very high damage risk, moderate damage risk, low damage risk, and very low damage risk. So what are the types of damages with regard to housing during cyclones? The roofs get damaged. Then the thatched roofs, in case of houses which have thatched roofs, they're very light, so they can be blown away during storm. Then even the tiled roofs, maybe they are a bit strong, but they can also be damaged. Then masonry walls, those made of stones and all, it can be. Can anybody say in any of your country, like, what is where floods and cyclones are there, what is the damage that you see? I don't know, is there any country which is prone to earthquake? Do you come from any country where the earthquakes are? There are no earthquakes. And what about cyclones and floods? I think Zambia is prone to cyclones and floods. Yeah, John.
Can, for us
Yeah.
in Uganda, we experience earthquakes, but I think we are at a very low damage risk because you only feel the shaking, you only feel that pressure. Sometimes
Okay.
you feel you can hear the iron sheets shaking, but we rarely get damages to buildings.
Okay. Adamu?
Yes, ours is actually the flood,
Mm.
and the nature of damage is that houses do submerge into the water, buildings
Mm.
do collapse,
Mm.
livestock are lost, farm crops are destroyed.
Mm.
These are the nature of damage. Health facilities are also being destroyed, submerged in some cases.
Then what type of houses generally are built? Like, what is the
The more
extent of damage to the
well,
houses?
like those houses that are not engineered, mostly they will completely destruction. And those that are engineered, you will see them, they will just submerge into the water, and only the roof upper side of the roof that is being damaged, but the building used to be spared.
Okay.
In my sight, that is mostly what is obtainable.
Okay. Sam?
Yes, thank you. What we also experience similarly, like what happens in Uganda. We
Mm.
have the experience of earthquake, but of course we have not witnessed any damage. And one thing that I would like to ask is if the damage that we don't experience here, is it related to the distance to the origin of the earthquake that we experience it's at a minimal, or what is it exactly? That's something that I want to understand. Because I've experienced it, especially here in South Sudan, but I think more than twice in a number of duration apart, but then we don't feel really the effect, like collapse
Okay.
of the structure, but yes. So what does it relate to?
Okay.
Thank you.
Not much. Okay. Then somebody else has raised a hand. Somebody else. Huh? Somebody had? No. So okay, not much then in your countries that the nature of damage is severe. But in general, like since you are pursuing, you should know that these are the types of damages that takes place. So generally, like as I said, buildings and infrastructure and the earthen buildings with stone and brick masonry, and also those buildings with low foundation, weak foundation, they all are prone to damages during floods. So these are the things that occur due to floods. Then generally, what are the why do these things happen? Like in case of disasters, why is it that damages take place so severe? First is, as we know, it is lack of preparedness and also failure to give timely warning so that they can get evacuated, and there is inadequacy of giving of information to everybody. Then also the administrative machinery also many a times is not able to give the right direction and help in evacuation, search and rescue. And also at times there is no coordination among different departments, there is delay in mobilizing resources, and also local authorities are not able to do much. And these are the factors that contributes to this damage to this houses. And also other thing is due to floods, like cyclones and floods, almost the type of damage that happens is almost the same. In case of floods also, the level of damage, there is a gradation. G1 is very low damage, where there are few cracks, in the walls of the houses and infrastructure. G2 is low damage, where very large pieces of plaster it comes down. G3 is moderate damage. There are deep cracks in the walls. G4 is high damage, where there are big cracks and there are gaps in the walls. All these happen. GS G5 is very high damage. See why this gradation is done is it helps in damage assessment. That is the reason why in many countries, I think the gradation may vary in your country. Whether I don't know whether you have such gradation. Do you have anything laid down? How do you grade the extent of the damage to buildings and houses? Do you have anything? Do you have any guidelines? Because when the compensation is, do you have the system of compensation where the disaster victims, they approach the authorities for compensation for the damage to the houses? Do you have?
Like here in South Sudan, there's nothing like that.
Acha, you don't have. But in generally in India, we have, like, when the damage assessment is done by the local administration and then by this thing, then they assess the extent of the damage that has happened to the buildings. Accordingly, the compensation also is paid to the. Acha, none of your countries you have this system to assess the damage to the buildings. That's why we have this gradation. Is there any compensation given, immediate compensation paid to the victims in any of your countries when the disaster occurs?
Well, I think in Nigeria there is nothing like that. But when this thing happen, flooding occur, they only give them some little material like roofing sheet. Sometimes they given them like a part of roofing sheet. They given them like a mats and other things. That's all what they are giving. But that's all.
Acha, that's all. Then where do they go? They have some makeshift arrangement where they go when their houses get destroyed.
No, no, there's nothing like that.
You don't have any community system of community shelters or anything?
We have it. We
Actually,
have it.
they move to primary schools that are not around it within the vicinity. The secondary
Yeah.
school and primary schools.
Yes.
Schools are converted. Even in India also, schools are converted into shelters where they go. Abu Bakr, you have something?
Yes, ma. In such disasters, if it strikes in Nigeria, some areas there is provision for internally displaced persons camp. So they used to take them to such places just for rehabilitation and other things.
Okay. Then Tombe Silva.
Yes, I also need to give outlook of what happens when it comes to disaster, and also issues to do with the rehabilitation programs like in our country.
You are from which?
I'm from South Sudan.
Okay.
Yeah, this issue, it is a bit complex in our country here. As you people know that this country has emerged from a very long war, and up to now, the country still it is in crisis. There are systems that currently the
Yeah.
government it is trying to put everything in a right way, but the current outlook is that when it comes to most of these disaster-related issues in our country, currently we face three major issues related to disaster. We have issues of drought, we have flood, and we have migration. And in these three, in these three aspects. As a country, the look is that most of the interventions here are normally being done by the responses are normally done by humanitarian workers. And yeah, on the side of the government, I've seen, last year and the other year we face issues in Bara al Ghazal sites where there was really a lot of flooding, and most of the community in the affected location as a result of flood, they were forced to move to nearby uh, villages, nearby areas, and
Okay.
they were mostly accommodated. They were forced to gather in locations where there are facilities, like one of the facilities school, of course, and then a nearby like county related structures, and that's where organization went and they were supported, and this is exactly the context we have in the country.
Okay. Good, good,
Yeah.
good. Thank you. Evaristo?
Thank you so much, Professor. In Zambia, normally we experience these when we have floods. Normally, the cyclones, we don't have much effect, but it gives us the effect of rainfall, a lot of heavy rainfall. But the
Okay.
countries that suffer from the effects of cyclones mainly are those like Mozambique and Malawi. By the time it's coming to Zambia, it has weakened, but it gives us just the influence of rainfall. And now this rainfall brings quite a lot of flooding in some parts and areas of the country. Now, there are unstructured houses normally collapse. And the first thing that is done is to find a suitable place where these can temporarily be resettled, and we use temporary shelter for those. And normally, in most of the cases, we use tents for temporary shelter for them. After that, the government provides iron sheets for them. So, and
Okay.
those that need to rebuild their houses are given iron sheets to help them reconstruct their houses. Those that opt to be relocated, alternative land is given to them for them to be resettled in a different area.
Okay.
That's basically what happens in. Yes.
Okay. Good, good. So now, as we all know, the nature, you all are aware that this is the extent of the nature of damage. Like when we talk of damage, now the next thing is we need to move towards disaster resistant house construction. In this unit, we have discussed the extent of the damage that happens. The next is now we have to move forward and look towards how do we go about in any country towards having disaster resistant construction. So, in this, I think the governments in all countries have certain guidelines. At the same time, they get the assistance from international agencies and other organizations, NGOs in the respective countries in this area. For example, in earthquake resistant construction, it's always better to avoid hillside slopes and areas where the soil is loose, because when the soil is loose, then any earthquake, the impact is more. And also, the building should, as far as possible, whenever it is constructed, should be symmetrical. And also, it is better to have in a large building to separate it into several blocks. So these are certain things that one needs to follow. Similarly, in case of cyclones, the structure should be in areas which can withstand strong winds. And in those buildings and infrastructure or other buildings, the flat roofs should be avoided, because any strong winds the roofs may be blown away. And also one should as far as possible avoid projecting elements like antennas, chimneys and all. And also the certain zones are prohibited in any country where the construction should not take place, and these should be strictly followed. The prohibited zones, the government should identify and demarcate those zones in which the construction is not allowed. These should be avoided. And also there should be good waterproofing treatment, and also there should be good forestation around the areas. So whenever we talk of guidelines for disaster resistant construction, certain things that we need to keep in mind is, first, the various hazard prone areas in that place should be identified. The government and the concerned authority should identify the hazard prone areas. It is a responsibility of the government. Then vulnerability and risk assessment of the buildings. Already some buildings and infrastructure is there. The assessment of these should be done. And also there should be technical guidelines properly laid down for hazard resistant construction of the buildings. And certain buildings which are already there, they should be retrofitted. Retrofitted is, again, you should strengthen it as per the guidelines and using the appropriate technology. They should be strengthened, that is retrofitting. So one should adhere to the technical and legal regime whenever the disaster resistant construction is taking place. There are certain traditional disaster construction techniques. I think each country has its own, so we need to follow that. Do you have any traditional ways of construction in your countries? Do you have anything? Any traditional methods are followed in house construction? Yeah.
Yes, of course, those traditional methods, even the blocks that are being used to build a house are being done by the hand, unlike the new method of using engine, so that the blocks will be compressed and they will be vibrated so that they will be strong. The traditional
Okay.
methods, they use hands to do the blocks, and also they don't used to do this what they call DBC before building. That is the foundation will only be on the ground. Just one block will be covered and the building will be erected.
Yeah.
Tho-
Oh,
those are the
acha.
traditional method that used to use.
Okay. Then Abu Bakar.
Yes, ma. One of these traditional method is after making the local blocks, they
Hmm.
will they will put these blocks into fire so that they'll be more strong and
Oh,
more
yeah,
resistance to erosion
yeah.
and rainfall. So that's one
Oh,
of the traditional method of making those buildings.
because it's always better that each country adopts, like in the unit you will find that there are examples relating to India. Like in India, like there are, which is prone to many earthquakes. Like for example, we have a state, Rajasthan. Okay. And Rajasthan, generally we call it, they call it as sumers, like where the foundation is quite deep, and also the state is more prone to heat, so accordingly it is built. And they have certain, the big balconies, and so different types of traditional methods are used. And also, so these type, that's why I say that each country, whenever it is, like for example, there is an example of house technology in case of Peru in the unit, where the foundation, whatever they use is quite concrete. There are wooden columns, and there is careful joining of the columns and beams. So all this, as I said, each country has to evolve its own housing technology. Like, for example, wherever there are, I don't know if you have stone and brick buildings in any of your country. Do you have stone and big brick buildings?
Yes, we do have in my site.
Okay.
Yes, because we have brick industry safe in
Hmm.
my site. It's located
So
at
the
Mubi.
damage that happens to it is quite this thing, isn't it? Stone buildings, because they are quite heavy, and also at times there is no connection between the roofs and the walls in case of stone buildings. So the damage is also heavy. Do you have brick masonry buildings? Brick bricks made of brick masonry. So there are certain, yeah, brick masonry buildings also, they have their own specifications. And the damage is, in case of bricks masonry buildings, there appears to be quite cracks, and the collapse of the roof and all these happens. So accordingly it has to be made. And even in case of, we call it reinforced concrete cement buildings, I think you all must be having these buildings now, RCC we say. Do you have concrete cement buildings? Concrete cement buildings. So these concrete cement buildings also suffer a lot of damage. So they have a different types. It's all an engineered this thing where you have certain specifications how the plinth band should be, the roof band should be, the lintels how should it be. So all these accordingly. I know it is difficult, like for any this thing to follow the thing, but the thing is, in general, the more it is followed, the less will be the damage. So for this, what we need is, we need to have building codes and standards. Do you have building codes laid down in your country? Is there any building regulatory system in your country? In India, we have.
But we have, but it's not working.
It doesn't work.
We have
Then
it
when
in
the
Nigeria,
plan,
but they are not taking it as seriously.
no, when any plan for the building is made and got it approved, then don't you, it is not included in that? The building codes, whenever the building construction takes place, whether it is house or any other big buildings, don't you think that these building codes are adhered to when they pass the plan of the building, or there are no inspections that take place?
No, ma, in Nigeria. Hello, good day, ma. In
Good day,
Nigeria,
good day.
we have it. There must be a surveyor before any building to take place. There is
Hmm.
in the Ministry of Works. So in the Ministry of they have that engineers. So
Okay.
any building, either private or government.
Hmm.
So there must be those that will go and survey the area, find out
Hmm.
if the area it has a risk, either to disaster or landslide or anything related to any kind of disaster.
Hmm.
They will inform the government about the issue. So, but the mentality of people. Some people,
Hmm.
even if you inform them, they will say that just do it. They will insist to do it. So that is the main reason that most of the time you can here in Nigeria we used to have building collapse and many other things like that, because even
Okay.
they will go and corrupt the agency that are responsible law enforcement of that issue of that law and order for the building to take place. Any building must be surveyor before it will take place. They will go and corrupt those that are responsible to supervise. So that is the main reason most of the time you hear about building collapse or anything related to that, or road. You hear that even road after construction, it will not take 2 years to find out that road has been destroyed. So all
Oh,
this that
okay. Sure. Adamu?
Yes, ma. Actually, apart from the Ministry of Works, we have urban and planning development.
Mm.
So they are saddled with the responsibility of, in fact, before you start erecting any building, it is expected that you will go through them. You will bring the plan of that building. They will go
Mm.
to the site. They will examine, survey, and give you approval. If there is no issue, if there is issue, they will advise where necessary and ask you to change the plan of that building. But as it is, as my colleagues say, the people mentality. They will all say all this is a long process. They will just boycott, and that is why sometimes you will see urban planning when they went out for inspection, they will be numbering some buildings and ask the owners to see them in their offices for ratification.
Okay. Achha. Tombe Silva.
Yes, in our country, yes, as my colleague said, for us in our country, yes, people put on buildings
Mm.
when they actually go. We have here Ministry of Housing,
Mm.
and in the Ministry of Housing in South Sudan, the only thing that I'm really very happy with it is that in most of the towns, like in the cities, most of our areas are well surveyed, and
Mm.
where roads are okay, it's only that the road need to be put in a right way. And
Mm.
when you want to put a concrete building, like
Mm.
a story building, normally citizens go to the ministry. The ministry sends engineers. They see with all the structures that you want to put their device, and the building, it is normally being constructed in that way. Unlike only we have a challenge whereby the rurally emerging locations,
Mm.
they don't follow this. They don't follow these related matters. In people that construct houses like that, and also in the town, there are people who construct their houses. They don't go to Ministry of Housing, but normally government advise them better to go, and they should be advised, and they get the building advice before they put the building. The only thing lacking is that our government, they are not yet very strict when it comes to this type of construction. It is not being enforced as a law yet. This is the
Okay.
only thing we have in yeah.
Okay. Ibrahim.
Hello, ma. So, in addition to what Adamu said, in our country, Nigeria, we have Federal Ministry of Environment. So they
Mm.
have policy, which is they have tools, which it's called
Mm.
environmental impact assessment.
Yeah.
Before any individual or company, before the execution of the project, you must follow these two protocols or policy to assess
Mm.
the environment before the execution of projects.
Mm.
So you have to test the texture of the soils
Mm.
and the topography of the area for the
Mm.
execution of the project. So even though I have an experience when in my state, when the building of the airport, we have been participated in the project. So we just follow all the policies for the assessments of the place that the
Mm.
execution of the projects. So that is the experience I have, and I
Okay.
share to.
Okay. Thank you very much. Then Abu Bakr.
Yes, ma. I just want to add to what my fellow countrymen said, Nigeria. So,
Mm.
as we can see, there are a lot of legislation and plans put in place for things to work very well. The issue is the public being corrupt, and as well as the other people at the high authority. So I'm saying this to my fellow countrymen. It's not only Nigeria that is being affected with this corruption. This is a global challenge. So they should please calm down. It's a challenge we are facing due to democracy, because if it is military rules, the government has more power to act on the people that were not well disciplined and other things. That's my contribution.
Okay, good, good. Good inputs. I think Ibrahim, you have to unmute. You have to mute yourself. So now, as we have come to this, like we do have Ibrahim, will you mute? You have to
No, sir.
mute.
No,
You
ma,
want
you
to say
can go on.
something? You want to say something?
No, ma. No, ma.
Okay, you have to mute your mic. Otherwise, it creates a this thing. Okay. So now, as we have discussed that there is damage that is given, that is, that happens to buildings, infrastructure. So the building codes, everything is there. Everything, the technical specifications are laid down. But then, as you say, each country has its own peculiarities, and we are not, that's why that leads to certain problems. So it's not that there are many agencies also which are involved in this building the disaster resistant house construction, and there are advances also in housing technology, like, you know there are various, I'm sure in your countries also the government comes up with recent advances. But the thing is, as you say, does it go down to the grassroots level? Like, are people able to take advantage of this? That is the biggest question. Like in disaster management, as we said, in theory there are many things that, it's not that the managing of disasters is not getting importance, it is, but each country has its own political, like, socio political is set in a particular socio political environment. So accordingly, like, certain problems crop up because of this. It is not being done in the way it has to be. Okay. So now we'll take a break of about 5 minutes. Okay. Then we come to the other two units. Okay.
Okay, ma.
It's
Thank you
okay.
very much.
Okay, now we come to the other one, the unit number 11, that role of housing and building authorities. See, when we talk of rehabilitation, yeah, tell me. Yeah, you
Yes.
raised.
Yeah. I'm just requesting you. I feel like if you can share your slide, it will be much better for us to understand also. And if it is not there, it is okay.
Yeah, right now, because this was given to me in the last this thing, so I have other it takes time for me to, because I'm involved in other this thing, so that's why I could not make it. Okay.
Oh, no worry. No worry. No worry.
So see, the main purpose is the material. I'm sure you must have gone through. So the thing is, in the material, we have examples relating to India. Okay. So the thing is, I request that whenever any question, I do not know your assignments, or whenever you write about the theory aspects, like you need to substantiate with your country specific examples. So what we are just discussing, that's why I involve you, so that you can relate it to your country's this thing. So that is the main objective. Because in general, you see that the theme that runs through the entire program is like, how rehabilitation, reconstruction, I'm talking about this course. Why is it important? That you may find that many a times it is repeated, but that is needed because we link it to the unit in which it is discussed. So, for example, in this also, we talk about, in this unit, we talk about priorities in a situation of rehabilitation. Okay, what are the priorities? The priority is, first, we have to provide the emergency relief to the people, then rehabilitation of all the displaced persons, then restoration of basic alternative means of livelihood, then initiation of long-term development initiatives. All these become part of rehabilitation and recovery. See, when we talk of rehabilitation, it is not that we need to rehabilitate the people in physical aspects. Okay, development of infrastructure and other things are important. Other thing is the community's social system also has to be, the entire social fabric gets disturbed in case of disaster, isn't it? So the social fabric gets disturbed. So we need to restore the social fabric. That is also very important. So generally, I want to ask you, what are the activities that we undertake in pre-disaster? What are the activities that we undertake in pre-disaster? Before disaster occurs, what are the activities generally that needs to be taken? Yeah.
Awareness, information, training of people and maybe local volunteers, and things like advocacy, all those things that has to do with teaching awareness and information.
Activities during disaster. During disaster. Yeah.
The actually, based on my understanding, the first thing it should be like the immediate search and rescue of the victims, first aid, and after those, then the issues of food supply and hygiene and things like that will come. Sanitations, taken out of debris and things like that.
What about post disaster? Like disaster, post disaster. What does the topic that we are discussing comes under post disaster, don't you think? whatever we are discussing, the reconstruction and rehabilitation. It comes.
Mobilization of funds.
Hmm.
That is and also damage assessment,
Hmm.
and also the trying to see how they can reconstruct and strengthen the infrastructures that are still standing,
All these comes under.
psychotherapy,
Hmm.
other things like that.
Yes, Mr. Tombe.
Yes, just a quick one. Your question is yes, what we are discussing, it is a post-disaster
Hmm.
intervention. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, post-disaster intervention. So, post-disaster intervention, like what are the other things that you need to rehabilitation? Then provision of financial aid also comes under post-disaster, isn't it? Whatever aid that needs to be
Yes.
okay, and
Yes.
also, hmm, yeah,
Yeah, I actually wanted to answer that. In post-disaster,
hmm,
uh, like when it comes to things related to relief agencies,
hmm,
in post-disaster, normally emergency comes, whereby what my brother was talking about, issues whereby you do a quick need assessment. After
hmm,
quick need assessment, you looked at what best can be provided to this
hmm,
community when it comes to health related issues. Is there any health gaps?
hmm,
uh, are there issues related to diseases? And
hmm,
are there structures that are damaged?
hmm,
What need to be done? Are there wash related issues? Are there water available? Are there
hmm,
things that need the community to be supported in related to wash intervention? Are
ah,
there things that are needed to be given to the community when it comes to FSL related intervention? If
hmm,
crops are destroyed, what should be done to this community? If their livestock died, what need to be given? These are some of the things that can be prioritized during post-disaster related. It can be both emergency aspect, whereby the intervention can be between a period of 3 months to 6 months, can be from 1 to 9 months, and in development aspect, the
hmm,
intervention can be 1 year, can be 2 years, can be 3 years, and can even be 5 years. This
yeah,
is how normal, based on the overall context, what I can say. Thanks.
okay, good, good. Then I want to ask you, like, because we have the responsibility for this housing and building, like in India, we have the governmental agencies which take care of this, then non governmental agencies, then international agencies also play a role. Okay. What about your countries? Like, what is the system? Like, you have any specialized agencies that play a role in this reconstruction and rehab, especially housing? We are discussing housing.
Yeah, yes. Especially in our country here, South Sudan, as I mentioned before, that due to the prolonged conflict we had in the country and the crisis currently we are having, our government, per now, they are actually not in a proper position to, to respond to most
Hmm.
of disaster-related issues. They
Hmm.
looked at the other bigger aspect where the citizens are currently having problem. And
Okay.
yes, we have quite number of agencies that are working in the country that
Hmm.
are responding. And most of the agencies that normally works globally, they have their mandates, they have their visions, and based on the mandates, like for example, in South Sudan, we have agencies like International Red Cross. They
Hmm.
actually do this rehabilitation programs, and we also have we have agencies, UN agencies that also do related program when it comes to issues of housing, in FSL related intervention. We have FAO that support the country a lot, and we have facilities that are related to education are normally supported by UNDP. They are the ones supporting with UNICEF, and we also have agencies that support in related to health related issues. When there are gaps, it is normally World Health Organization, WHO, they are the one that support, and quite number of other agencies that are actually supporting.
Okay. Any other thing to be added? Yeah. Yes. Evaristo?
Thank you so much. In terms of housing in Zambia, we have at the local level we have the local authorities. So they are the ones that approve the building plans. So when one needs to build, needs to go to the local authority for approval for planning. Of course, the plan must be approved, and after that approval, the construction must be done according to the technical specifications. That is, if we are within the urban. However, those that are in the peri-urban and the rural part, normally just to build with the local materials without any specifications. So it's very difficult for those. But in the cities and the urban areas, the local authorities provide oversight. On the overall, we have the Ministry of Housing and Infrastructure development that coordinates all the housing and all the construction that takes place in the country, so must be approved by that. In terms of the interventions that come after the disaster, of course, we have the reconstruction of the housing units that have been damaged. I like what is coming on the African scene. The African Union in 2014 brought an agency. I'm sure you've heard of the Africa Risk Capacity, and they're providing insurance for cyclones. There's now even a cyclone insurance. They are testing now the flood insurance. There's already a drought insurance that is for the slow onset disasters like drought. The insurance has already been there. But one thing that is more striking is the cyclone insurance and the flood insurance that they have been bringing on board on the market. So on the private sector scene, we have seen that even at local level, especially those that are in cities, now we have seen some products now, insurance products that are like in Lusaka, you find insurance products for flood now. Some private companies, insurance companies have come on board also to bring in flood insurance for where one can insure against that. So on the financing thing, I think we are moving in the right direction. But above all, we must have an M&E. We must have monitoring and evaluation to see whether the interventions that have been put in place are working or they are really having an impact on what has been planned, the strategies that have been implemented. Thank you.
Okay, good. So, and what about the non-governmental agencies also play a role?
Yes, they do. We have the state and non-state actors. We have the UN systems that come in handy. We have the the CBOs, civil society organizations that also are playing a big role. We have international NGOs as well as the local NGOs. We have World Vision, Habitat for Men. They are doing a great job. They are not only involved in post disaster, but they are also involved in ex ante activities.
Okay.
Where there are some that are actually very active in early warning for flood, and many other aspects of prevention and risk reduction. They are quite active in the space.
Okay. Good. Good to know that. Now, next we come to the last unit, that is education and awareness. Why do you think education and awareness is important in disaster management? More so in disaster. Education and awareness is needed in all aspects, but I want you to come out with why is it that is more required in case of disaster management, in managing disasters. See, we have several training programs run by different agencies and all on various aspects. But when it comes to managing disasters, like what is it? Why is it? And what should be the goal of the education and training programs? You tell.
Yes, ma. Education and awareness helps people to know the susceptible people, those that are at risk, to know the danger they are being exposed to.
Yeah. And then how is it like, it should target the community. So any amount of disaster management activity will not meet with success until the community participates in the formulation and implementation of disaster related activities. So community participation is the key to effective disaster management. So that's why we say that information, education, and communication is very important. And what are the ways through which we can improve this? You tell me. What are the various ways through which we can, yeah. Adamu?
Yes, the best way to improve this is by involving the community right from designing the curriculum and also looking at the resources that are going to be used in that teaching and awareness, local resources that are very close to them, and also identifying those that are going to train them among them, those that have experience. That will enhance participation and patronization of the program.
Then how can it be done? Like what are the ways? Dumba, Sam?
Yes, in most of the cases, what I've seen in disaster is that awareness is always created like as a reactive program, and then to have a sustained program and to develop a kind of resilience in the community, I think this thing should be incorporated into the development program. So that means if in the education sector that can be incorporated into the curriculum, and it should be a continuous process, not only like a one day a reactive program, so that we can have like depending on the location and then the area that is prone to the disasters that are available within that location. So we should have those kind of programs continuously. Yes. Over.
And it can be done through how can it be done? Like what are
Yes.
the ways?
One like in either primary or secondary schools. Some of these can be introduced like some topics into the syllabus, like mitigation, like brief introduction into the various disasters in the area, and then how to mitigate. That can be incorporated in the syllabus either in the primary school or in the secondary schools. Yes, and then also in the national media houses like the radio or television, this can be always played like on regular basis, at least daily. This can be played so that people get uh, these messages in the community, either in televisions or radio stations that are within the locality. This should be put as a priority, as a program for the country. Okay?
Good. Adamu?
Yes, ma. It can also be done by through identifying the CBOs and the community volunteers through training them, using staff, and also identifying the infrastructures to kind of implement the plan.
Hmm.
And also it can be done in the form of a role play, and also
Yeah,
using the festivities period of those people to inculcate it as a part of the program in during the festive period and things like that.
yeah, yeah. Good. George, any other? I think George had Evaristo.
Yes, in Zambia we have it's quite a comprehensive program. The only problem is that it's centrally organized. We have a program called Community-Based Disaster Risk Management. What this tries to do is to go to the organization structure and make sure that everyone is sensitized and made aware of disaster risk. So what it is that there's a district committee, there's a provincial committee, there's a satellite or village level committee. Now, when these committees are put in place, we make programs to train the members of these committees so that these committees can go out in the village to train the villagers on best ways to manage the disasters and the disaster risk. Apart from that, even communication is done through these committees. Any early warning information that is generated is passed through the province into the district, into the satellite committees that are created. So the
Yeah,
first intervention through education that is done is the community-based disaster risk management education program. Uh, and it's a strategy that is actually working very well because it's bringing this to the local level. The only problem is that there's quite a lot of turnover, especially at district level. A lot of officers are transferred. You train this year, you find next year you go to train them, you find they're a different crop. So you
yeah,
keep on training and retraining because of the turnover of officers at district level. However, at the local level, they are stationed. So mainly the only problem is that the one that spearheads this is the national office, and that's where sometimes not all districts are reached. Very few districts are reached. Then we work also through the other agencies. The like World Vision is very active in this. We also work with World Vision. We work with Save the Children and many other international organizations and local organizations.
okay,
Agencies like USAID are also supporting these interventions. The German agency are also supporting education systems for disasters, and it works quite well for I think for Zambia. Uh, what I just see is that we need to decentralize it more so that it's anchored at the local government level. That way, I think it's going to be to have more impact than at current, where it is at a national level.
okay, good. Adamu?
Yes, ma. I also want to add that it can also be achieved through using these media outlets
Yeah.
like TV series, movies, radio
Yeah.
programs, because I have seen impact of one of the program that they used to do in the Rosopchi. about the safety
Acha.
of the roads. That it's a radio program series, but it's impacting so much on the people that riding cars and vehicles on the road. So I think if that can also be used for the aspect of disaster, it will go a long way in providing,
Yeah.
mitigating, and also proper management of disaster. So I think if those can be
Yeah.
harnessed, it will also go a long way.
The media play has a very important role because the media has to build a accountable public image. It has to reach out to the people, and also it also has to disseminate information on various aspects, like preparedness, mitigation, and also when we talk of rehabilitation, reconstruction, like what are the different techniques of house construction, all this the media has to give information. Like in India, we have some small amateur radio clubs also, like radio networks in local areas, community radios. I hope you also, some places you have it, where it's very easy to disseminate, especially in some of the states where, especially the fishermen, for the fishermen, it becomes very, very easy when they get information from the community radios about the weather forecast, because they have to go to the seas to catch fish and all this, it gives them information. I hope in some of your countries also you have this. We call it small community radios or voluntary radio networks.
We call them FM radios here.
Yeah, what do you FM radio? Yeah, yes, yes. So you know, so all this, like through these, the all the stakeholders, it is not just community, but all the stakeholders can be involved and then oriented, like non-governmental organizations, governmental agencies, community, all this. So when we talk of increasing the awareness, education, and training of the community, ultimately what do we aim at? Like we should, through this, the community is empowered. We are focusing on increasing the empowerment of community, building their capacities, and also, when need be, all these stakeholders come together and they participate in the rehabilitation activities. And also there is increased transparency and accountability. When people get participated in this activity, there is lot of increasing transparency and accountability, and also there is reduction of dependency. Like the communities, the basics idea is to strengthen the communities so that they are able to respond first in disaster situations and then do the needful. So this can be done only through proper information, education, and communication. And also the psychological trauma and other things, like that impact the disaster victims, with more and more education and awareness, these things can be minimized. See, in psychological trauma, it's not that somebody from outside is coming and giving you the succor. That within the community they can be trainers who can give the necessary, because a community is a very strong social institution. So somebody from the community talks to the victims, that gives a lot of strength. Don't you think so?
Yes, we think so.
See, involving the local communities helps in awareness. This education and awareness of the local community helps in disseminating information about the vulnerability of the area. At times the people are residing in the area but they may not be taking it seriously, but then dissemination of information helps them to know to which disasters they are vulnerable, what are the risks and elements, and what are the nature of what is the nature of the mitigation measures that should be adopted, and the need for a local community based disaster preparedness plan, and what are the various ways in which the community participation can take place, and how to respond to the early warnings, and importance of information sharing. So the information which is right information should be shared, so that there is less scope for rumors. because generally in disaster situations, the rumors that spread create a lot of panic. Isn't it so?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. Most of the time, rumors is the killer safe.
So proper information dissemination makes them strong, and then it at least makes them aware. See, even if 1 out of 10 gets, becomes aware, then that person is able to disseminate the information to the others. In this, the local organizations, the local, what we call in India as Panchayati Raj institutions, they are the elected bodies, they play an important role. See, whatever, because the community has faith in the local government institutions, so that helps them in generating and making them a self-reliant community. So information, education, communication is a very important aspect in strengthening and empowering the community. Okay. So these, the practices and the techniques that are followed may vary from area to area and region to region. But then, in India, disaster management now has become an important part of the school curricula also. I'm sure in your countries also it is being taught at the school level.
Not really so, ma'am. Here in
It's
Nigeria,
not part of the school
yeah, it's
curriculum.
not. It's not, ma'am.
Yeah, only in the health school institutions like colleges of nurses,
Okay.
we have a dedicated course, the nursing and disaster management.
Okay.
But in the secondary and primary school, I don't think we have anything like that in our curriculum.
Okay. So I think that is a very important thing which needs to be, because the children, once they are made aware of little things, how they should be able to protect themselves, when an earthquake happens or when flood or a cyclone is about to strike. So all this, and they are able to, disseminate information in the family. So that is because in India now it has become a part of the curriculum at the school level and even at the college level also. So I'm sure your countries also take a lead in this, which is very, very important. Okay. So any other, now with this, now we have finished for today. And any other thing? Yeah, George.
Hi, Professor. How are you?
Good.
Just to agree what you have said, that I think it's now our responsibility as scholars of disaster management to lobby our governments to consider, adding disaster management from early stages, as you have said, as you are doing in India. It's very important. Like in my case, I think I learned about disaster management when I was doing my master's in developmental studies. So you can imagine all this gap. So it means that there's a lot that I could have at a tender age. Um, that's what I just wanted to concur with you. And also, nowadays we are in the social media era whereby everybody is a journalist, everybody spreads information anyhow at whatever time. And I like the idea, I mean, what you said about sending the right information. So the media plays a very crucial role in sending the right information to the people, because otherwise the wrong information causes more damage and stress to the people. So I just wanted to
Yeah.
concur with you.
And the other thing is the media generally, in many countries, in India also, many a times it's seen that once a disaster happens, like till then the media is quite active. Okay. Then generally the interest wanes. Like nothing much comes about how the rehabilitation activities, post disaster phase events, generally the media covers less. So that also should be an aspect that should be taken, that the media, the role of media is confined not just to disaster phase, it should be towards pre-disaster, during disaster and post-disaster also. So many a times the reconstruction rehabilitation activities taken up in an area which was badly devastated, generally that information is not available. Generally the media covers, but not to that. Generally during the disaster, the coverage of the media is more, which should be more in all the phases of the disaster management. Then only when we say that education, the awareness of the community shall increase. Okay. Then do we close this? Any doubts, anything? And regarding the project, like anybody wants to do, like ma'am has given the guidelines, I think she can guide you accordingly. You can do it. Okay. If any one of you
Thank
has
you,
taken
ma'am.
the project.
Yes, what she have said is that she have given the email of yours and Professor Coley that we can choose either of you and send our
Yeah,
proposal for your approval.
yeah,
So
yeah,
after
yeah,
that, you will give us is it certification? Then we'll proceed and send it to the
yeah.
management.
Yeah, yes, yes. I think ma'am will again tell you, okay, the final thing, whether it has to be sent through email or whatever. Okay. Okay then. Okay. Have you enjoy your Sunday? Already you have spent 2 hours in the class. Okay. Is a holiday for you?
Yes, the class make the Sunday very very palatable because we
Yeah.
have gained a lot.
Yeah. Okay. So I thought, making it more interactive, getting information from you also helps me. Otherwise, whatever is written, I'm sure you know much of it, the theoretical aspects, but discussion helps in this. Okay. So this is not a class, that is a counseling where, it is a two-way thing. Okay. I hope you enjoyed. So we meet the last two classes next week. Okay.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you
Okay.
for your time
Okay,
and
thank you. Good
Okay,
day.
thank you.
sharing.
I really
Thank
appreciate
you. Have a
your effort.
nice evening.
Have a
Enjoy
nice day.
your Sunday.
Thank you. Huh?
Okay.
Thank you, ma. Thank you, ma.
Oh,
Thank you so
thank
much.
you. Thank
Thank
you.
you, ma. Good night.
Good night. Happy weekend. Like your long weekend. Week begins tomorrow. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Hello, George. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here, my brother. I'm here. How are you?
It's been a long time. How are your family?
My brother Salim, I remember you because I think you were a mortuary person that time, yeah?
Yes. That's long.
I used to be in the mortuary.
Salim, how many corpses
Un-
have you counted now?
uncountable, Adamu. They are
Huh?
uncountable.
Are you
I
sure?
even saw a corpse that looks alike with your face, similar to your face.
Yeah, don't
I
serious.
thought you were the one around the border of Sudan.
Huh? No, no. It's my younger brother, but I think he narrowly escaped now. He's at the
I thought,
border. Hopefully hopefully he will reach Nigeria tomorrow.
thank God he has scalloped.
Yeah,
How's everything? How is work in your family?
fine. How is yours?
Alhamdulillah,
George,
Alhamdulillah.
Hi, my brother.
George, I can see you are adding weight these days.
Ah,
You need to start going for exercise.
Exactly.
You
I've
know,
seen
you know, we are expecting you to champion the cause of disaster training and
you
evacuation
know
in your side,
you,
and you are adding too much weight. I don't know how it could be.
you know it seems like he's a kind of vegetarian. So he used to consume a lot.
Look at Jojo. I said, look at this man. Ha.
He used to
guys,
consume a lot.
you're not serious.
I think we'll regulate his diet.
Yeah, kind of banana, apple, so on and so forth. As you can see.
Huh?
Nice
We will
having
regulate
you
his
guys.
diet. We'll put him on a dietary district management
You know,
That's your
since
own
he's not willing
portion,
to go
Adam.
for exercise.
You are the one
disaster
supposed to accept
management.
it.
need somebody who is much stronger with more energy, so that, like Salim, you know, your work you need more energy. You know, you'll be receiving a lot of cops. So
I need a helping hand now, like yours.
but not there.
Okay, guys, have a nice day.
Thank you, guys.
So have a wonderful day. Enjoy yourself and your family.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Inshallah, I'll see you next time.
All right, thank you.